This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
We see Cena team with Batista and Lashley to take on Booker, Finlay, and Regal on SmackDown. Lashley gets the pin over Booker. And then we get to a steel cage match once again on Raw. This time it's October 2nd. And who do you know? It's Edge and Cena. They go 19 minutes and 11 seconds. And Cena gets the win with the FU. It was a really long feud, but it was a good feud that provided a lot of major moments. But it did feel like fans were tiring of it at the end. Do you think that the old long-term storytelling, because it feels like, what we grew up on 30 years ago, man, they would go a year with a feud. And now it feels like maybe we all have a shorter attention span because of social media or just the pace of life in modern society. It felt like fans were burnt out on this 10 months in here.
I believe that there are still places for long-term programs. I still think you can have a story that could go a year, but it has to be booked right, has to be timely. You have to add different ingredients to your stew. And it's just got to be handled properly. It's not easy. It's not as easy as it was back in the day. Back in my day, we didn't even have catering. Okay, right. Tony Gurria there. But yeah, it can be done, but it's got to be done carefully, and you got to change things up. You can start here. Where I am, there I am. You start here, and then you're gonna have to blow off over here, and so to do that, you need to change the story up a little bit with some new players and some new ingredients, as I mentioned regarding the soup. But it's not easy. It's not easy, but it can be done if done properly. But it's much more challenging today because of what you said. Well, I've already seen that match. And when somebody says I've already seen that match, sometimes, Conrad, it means to me that you're very much a novice.
Yeah.
And you really don't get it. That the best stories are ones that have a nice arc, a long arc, and so that could be a year or whatever. Look at how long Austin and McMahon had their rivalry.
Oh yeah.
They changed ingredients. They had Rock in it and they had somebody else, Triple H in it, and they kept adding things, but it still was a long story arc because it was done properly and the talents involved in the casting of such, or the booking, if you will, it worked. So I'm with you on that deal.
Let's talk about the Raw family reunion. It's really done to kick off a quote unquote new season for Raw. And we have John Cena taking on The Undertaker. It's a big match for a big show, special attraction match, if you will. Why don't you think we ever got them in a bigger program? It feels like Undertaker and Cena, they could have had one hell of a long-term program, but it just never really happened.
I think part of it might be to protect The Undertaker and his babyface status.
Okay.
And he would have been the babyface, but it would have further put another shovel full of dirt on John Cena's babyface run.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it just didn't seem the right thing to do at that point in time. And, people kept waiting for Cena's going to turn heel. Cena's going to, he'll have to turn heel here. I know he will. Everybody's doing their booking. So I thought that, I think that it was to protect Taker a little bit and to protect John. So, but you're right. It would have been a very interesting attraction. And I thought it would have been very well received. But you got to protect both guys because of who they are, what they represent, etc.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com. Let's also talk about the Royal Rumble. That's the next major pay-per-view, and we would see John Cena defeat Edge to win the title back in 14 minutes and 3 seconds. This is interesting, I guess, because you've got a 2 pay-per-view month. So the whole chamber match and New Year's Revolution, and just a couple of weeks later, it's time for the Royal Rumble. We know that the Rumble marks the beginning of WrestleMania season, but my goodness, Edge did a lot very quickly. That's such a memorable cash in. Then the whole silly live sex show, then the Flair TLC. Was the company not sold on Edge being the top guy quite yet? Or was this more a matter of, hey, it just makes a good story for Cena and sort of gets over our new concept for the cash in?
Well, you got an interesting situation here. One is you're still building and trying to get Cena over, and you're building and trying to get Edge over. And then they're working with each other. So a lot of thoughts got to be given into the creative of that and how finishes are structured. But I think maybe your first suggestion, maybe the office didn't quite have all the confidence that they wanted in a quasi green talent that Edge was, because he was known as a tag team guy.
Right.
And so his whole voyage as a single star, which, obviously one of the highlights of WrestleMania for this year for me was that triple threat match, as I mentioned earlier, Edge and Reigns and Daniel Bryan. They're masterful, and it shows how far Edge has come. So, but I do think at that point in time, Conrad, my guess would be that he was not quite in a comfort level yet that would make Vince happy. Not unhappy, just I got to see more. He needs more time. He needs more experience. He needs more ring time at this level against this kind of quality competition. That would be my guess on that deal, because Adam had never had any issues with him. He was a perfect a locker room guy, and everybody had time to talk to him, and he was just a good dude. So I think maybe it was just the fact that he just quite hadn't proved himself to VKM at that point in time. And I might be wrong, but I think that would have more to do with it than about anything.
Well, now we know that Cena's the guy here again. He beats Edge again, we said, in 14 minutes and 3 seconds. Triple H, is he always the WrestleMania opponent in mind? Or was there a thought that, hey man, we got Edge hot enough, maybe they could have a rematch, if you will, at WrestleMania?
Triple H is always in the picture because he was arguably the best heel that we had, and certainly was that way for many, many years, to his credit. I just don't know. I always found it somewhat confounding. Triple H is a heel,
right,
and a damn good one. Harley Race's influence on Triple H was very prominent and very obvious. Excuse me. But I don't know, man. I think maybe I didn't know who the heel and babyface were. And it was a heel match. Was Edge versus Triple H a heel match?
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.